Welcome to the Meta Meltdown. This is Northern Knights Gaming, Claudio, and this is Anthony right beside me with his new mustache. He's ready to go. Fresh from playing on tabletop. How did you like that?
It was a really weird experience being there, just going from watching them to being on the channel. Yeah.
We got a special guest today. We got Brian here from the other guys, 40K. How's it going, Brian?
Happy to join you guys. Yeah, it's great to be a guest, and anytime I can take a little bit of time out of the day and talk about 40K, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. Pleasure to have you here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the meta right now. You went to a team tournament over the weekend. It was a 9-player team tournament?
No, it was actually, so Beer and Pretzels Open was a 16-team, 8-man tournament.
Wow.
Yeah, massive. 128 players.
Wow.
Biggest, and I think really only formal large-scale 8-man teams tournament in Canada. There are more coming though, and but Davis Center and Aaron Green, the two organizers, the two partners, put on a really, really good show. It's kind of it was certainly their baby and the big experiment to see how it went. It went off awesome. So really, really good time. Yeah.
It looked like a lot of fun. I saw Scary was there playing with, I think they were called bottom table ponies or something along those lines.
Last place ponies. Yeah. So Ridvan was there in attendance, and of course he crushed it personally. But it is a teams event, and Scary, who frankly should have been down in the World Championships of Warhammer this past weekend, just other personal commitments couldn't go. But man, it would have been awesome for him to see him go down there and kick some ass. But he decided to play with some old buddies from a long time ago who were 40K buddies. So they were called the Last Place Ponies.
Right.
They did not finish dead last though, which is good for them because they definitely had some novice players, and we had a chance to play against them, and they're good fun, good opponents. Sky was definitely their team ringer, though. Clearly, just crushing it for and anyone he played against. But and that's the thing about teams. It's not really about individual performance, although can be satisfying.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it's about how the team goes. Your individual performance doesn't reflect your personal standings. It's something on a piece of paper, but
absolutely,
the team at the end, how your team does, is how your team eventually finishes and ranks in that event. And if you're someone who cares, say, about ITC points or things like that, well, something to remember is that if you're part of a team and you have a player who kind of jumped on a hand grenade every match and just got crushed and lost all of his games throughout the tournament, but your team finished first, and you had someone who went 6-0 or 5-0 or whatever throughout the tournament, you guys get the exact same points because you're part of the same team. So it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, that really is what makes 40K team formats so fun, is because it's as a collective. You lose as a team and you win as a team.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I mean, we've been part of a few. The last one we went to was TGX a couple of years ago. It was a five-man team tournament, and it's really fun. There's a lot of strategy to it. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever played MOBAs online, like League of Legends or things like that. There's a lot of like matchup, like player selection, like putting this guy against your stopper against their scoring army and things like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that strategy? Because I don't know.
I think that's a great point. And we can circle back on the meta, but we're jumping into the funness of a teams event. I think that's a great point. Is honestly, pairings will win you or lose you the event. So team events, for those kind of new to the format, say on a five-person team versus 5-person team, which can be a little bit easier to manage. But at the end of the day, what you do is you offer one of your teammates, the defender, to the other team. The other team does the same thing. And then once you flip over that card and see who they're offering, you draw 2 of your own players, the remaining, let's say 4, and you say, look, you can pick one of these 2 guys to play against. And then the person who's the single player who's offered up then gets to pick one of those 2. Yep. But you can see how the pairing matchups can go, because in 40K there's 30 different factions, all these different rule interactions, and clearly there are some matchups that are far more favorable than others.
Absolutely.
And A lot of teams have captains. Our the other guy's captain, Jaden McCartney, did a great job. He's very plugged into the current 40K meta and sort of really on top of what army is performing best.
Right.
And with player input, the captain will go, okay, we're going to put you up. Here's the two guys. Here's who I think you should play. What are you comfortable with? And then you go on. And so there's a ton of strategy about, maybe you offer your NIDS player who's like sort of a take all comers list, or maybe you offer your orcs player who's a bit of a skew list, and maybe it makes them choose something different. It's there is a ton of strategy in pairings, and it's a blast.
There's also that natural bad matchup for certain armies, like if you have a Custodes player and you're going up against a big swarmy list, you might just put them up against each other because it's a bad matchup for that opponent, right?
Absolutely. If you can neutralize a good team with a bad matchup, or even make them choose the lesser of two evils.
Right.
Let's say Necrons. Necrons, really a high scoring, great list in competitive play, but they have a couple of natural enemies in the environment. One would be Chaos Space Marines, and another is Votann.
Yeah.
And so teams will often, if those two armies are in the other team, the army that has a Necrons army in it will often not put up that Necron army to avoid being offered those two.
Absolutely.
And so there's some play in that to you really got to think it through, because at the end of the day, those bad matchups can win you or lose you the round.
Absolutely. That pretty much. It's new to a lot of people that don't know that style of playing 40K, but it is really fun playing with your friends, and you're on a team and you kind of strategize together. By the way, how did Dave do with Votann? Was he on the team?
Oh, Dave crushed it. Yeah.
Awesome.
He's a pretty good player in any event. And I think out of 128 players, let me check here, he finished 27th individually.
Very nice.
Going 4-1, and really look, with Votann, the guy's a weapon.
Right.
And look, you get guys into favorable matchups as well.
Exactly.
It's I don't want to go against him against CSM. I think he beats me all day long.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day too, it doesn't, your individual, it is neat to do well, but at the end of the day, it's your team. Hey, how'd your team do overall? Yeah. So yeah.
And so anybody that hasn't played a team event, try to get out there, because they are a totally different experience, and it is a lot of fun. Anything you want to add in about team events, or anything you want to ask?
I think it's a really good way to get newcomers into tournaments, because it's not just on your back, the winner or loss for the team.
Yeah.
So even if you perform bad, your team can do well. So individual performance isn't as exactly important.
Yeah.
You can set them up for favorable matchups so they have a better game.
Yeah.
And it's just
totally
it's a good way for newcomers to get in.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I honestly, Anthony, I think that's a great point, because for instance, this last place ponies team we played, it was the third team we played on the first day, and there were a couple players who, maybe not using the most meta lists or hadn't played a lot of games yet, but it wasn't this individual environment where you're kind of on your own, on your little island, getting crushed in a singles tournament. Instead, look, if you're part of a team and you're all facing challenges, and you maybe not have won as many games you'd like, you're sort of losing as a team. You can take solace in it. And if one guy, does well and kicks some butt for you, then that's great. You kind of collectively celebrate. A lot of, you'll hear a lot of content creators, or just, players who played a ton of 40K. Comes to mind Dean Simbeck, who has a great website called Blog for the Blood God down in Australia. He's now the captain of Team Australia. He loves 40K, loves anything chaos as well. But he will tell you every day of the week, the teams format is by far the best way to play 40K. Mainly, I think, because at the end of the day, your game in a competitive, team matchup, your game right to the end matters. When you're playing singles and you lose, just go, I got crushed. Who cares how much you lost by? But if you're playing in teams and you're getting, it's a bad matchup and you're getting beat up, but you managed to scratch a couple points for your team, even though you got your butt kicked, that might be the points that sort of put you over the top. And, which is really neat. It makes the whole game count, as opposed to when you're playing singles, you're getting your butt kicked. and it's turn 4 and you've kind of lost interest because all that's going to happen is, well, how many
20 or
points
by
is this
50?
guy going to beat me by, right?
And that's another great point that you brought up is how scoring works for teams. It's not so much that, you beat a guy by whatever, winning the game doesn't really matter. If it's how much do you win by and how much do you lose by. So even if you do lose the game, you can still keep it within, like, let's say 10 points of a loss or a 20-point loss. The other team gets less points from that win. And so it does matter to score points. It doesn't just mean, oh, I lost, I'm going to give up this game or whatever. I can make this a little bit closer and I can help my team out. And that's the great feeling of a team tournament is that, like you said, you're never really out of a game because every little bit you do can help points-wise.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel as bad losing.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you said that. And yeah, I agree with you that it is a really good way to get new players in, because Kenny, one of our friends who hasn't played in a long time, came to that tournament and he's just like, I'm back into 40K, this is so fun. And
awesome.
That's the environment. It's just the environment that feeds that. So yeah, I hope more players check out the team tournament events because they are so much fun. And I'm sad that we couldn't go to that one. We heard about it like last second, but
I don't even know how you organized 8 people to all play on the specific days.
Yeah.
I have trouble organizing like 4 people for something.
Yeah.
It's I think the phrase is herding cats. Durham region had 3 teams of 8 go forward, including ours and 2 others from our sort of my Durham team called Mid-Table Terrors, and they man, the captains of those 2 teams, it's a ton of work. So if you are that person who volunteers to put the team together, good on you, because it's sort of
a lot of work.
thankless. Yeah, but good fun. Like, man, it's so rewarding. I can't think of a more fun way to play 40K.
100%. Anything else you want to get into with that, or do you want to move on to the next topic?
For the team tournaments, no, you explained how it works.
We got everything
for
there,
everybody. And it is a great way to play.
So how did you guys do there overall?
My team were the other guys, named after our pod, obviously, and the 8-man team we put together of some Toronto players and mostly Durham players. Team captain, like I said, was Jaden McCartney, and Davey, one of the other players, Davey Payton, my partner for the other guys, and really the mastermind of our podcast. So the format, it's a 16-team format, and was kind of set up like a World Cup. So what they did was they said, okay, the organizers said, and I think this is actually really good because it made for more fun play. You had to put in your individual player ITC points, and they then ranked you. They seeded you at the beginning of the tournament, so that there wouldn't be one pod that would just be this sort of shark fest, and then other pods. It kind of spread out the skill level. Yeah, so there were 4 teams, like a World Cup. 4 teams of 4, a lot like the World Championship of Warhammer. Like there's 8 different pods here. There are 4. Yeah. And we were fortunate to be one of the top seeded teams. And then you're seeded in with 3 other teams. Yeah. We did win our pod, so that was neat. And what happens is once you win your pod, then you are playing for either 1st to 4th, and that's what you're going to play for.
So it's like a group stage to start.
Oh.
Exactly. If you finish second in your pod, then you're going to play against all the other second place players, and you're going to be playing for spots 5 through 8, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And what's great is, look, if you were had a challenging first day, and maybe you brought a team of players with not a ton of experience, well, on day 2, when you're playing 2 more games, you're going to be slotted in with a pod of similar players with similar skill level. And then, have a couple fun games and see where you finish, right? Yeah. So the other guys, we ended up in the semifinals against Dan Morris's team from the Red Dragon. Oh, yeah. Really, really great game. Unfortunately, we lost by 2 points. It is a collective. Yes. We won more games in the matchup. Yeah. We went 5-1 and 3, and the other team went 3-1 and 4. Okay. However, the tiebreaker was not wins and losses; it was the number of points. Right. And so they just pipped us. And they're a great team. They had a bunch of great players. 2 of their players actually, there's an Adeptus Mechanicus and a Demons player, actually won the had the best tied for best overall record for individual players. Wow. Adeptus Mechanicus just ripping it up.
Justin will be happy for that.
I searched it up.
Yeah,
This has one of the highest skill expressions in the game.
Yeah.
If you're good,
I think so.
AdMech are very
Big time.
good.
Yeah, it's that's the thing. So if you're a really good AdMech high skill player, you can really make that army work really well.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
and
And
they're
then,
scary.
yeah, oh yeah, really good. So look, we lost to them, which meant we were going to be
Yep.
playing for third and fourth. We ended up playing against Bloodbath and Beyond, their top seeded team. Really good, came down to the wire, and unfortunately they just pipped us very close, I think just by a couple points. So we ended up finishing fourth. So,
Was
you know what?
there? Was Hamzad playing?
No, he was
wasn't.
down at the World Championship.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right,
Hamza was
okay.
down. The Bloodbath team had some really good notable players. Phil Chotter on Orcs, who's
Nice.
won a bunch of tourneys. Kevin Bonanno, Luke Bordeaux. These guys are great players. We had a real good team too, so we knew it'd be good, a good matchup. And you know, at the end of the day, we finished fourth. We're pretty happy with that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. That's it sounds like a lot of fun. I saw Scurry had a lot of fun. He posted a bunch of videos as well. Yeah, let's get on to the next question you had because you have some questions about meta, right?
It's going to be, meta will be soon. Did want to ask next. It's the make or break stuff of the edition, the terrain, the layouts, the WTC terrain specifically. Because I know they have their like pre-made loadouts with like the small, medium, and large with how many ruins there are.
Yeah.
And it could just make or break your games. Did they do the style where you have to pick the map as well?
Yeah, so what they did was preset terrain, and generally all tournaments now, and I know you guys just played at X Planet on a big tourney there, and X Planet is now moving over to the footprint terrain.
Right.
I know they've just posted, Lionel's just posted some of the footprints that they're working on for their next tournament. But at the Beer and Pretzels, it was WTC style terrain. They had, I believe, out of 8 tables, I think they had 4 that were set WTC style, which is very dense terrain. It's pretty advantageous, I would say, if you had like a lot of infantry that can breach through ruins and what have you. At the same time, if you play a lot on it, I'll give Davey as an example, that you know, if you're really familiar with the terrain, he's shown me that hey, you can still find sight lines here, and if you get some nice long range firepower, you can nail them. You just need the experience and the reps on it. Then they had a couple tables with Stutter Snotling terrain because that was some of the terrain boxes they had borrowed from the Stutter Snotling crew, and then they had one community table. Now the community table, I think the feedback was mixed on it. It was basically kind of like fun terrain, like hills and like, you know, your typical terrain set up. It was fixed, and it did obscure somewhat, but it wasn't a particular style. It was, you know, there. So it was often like, well, who wants that? Could someone take that and help out the team?
Like, oh, here's a coin flip.
There's always that
I would say it was mixed sort of feedback on that, because I think with there's this North American tabletop touring circuit for Warhammer 40K 8-man teams that's been announced this year, and it's now across North America, and they're starting to create some stops for it, right? And it's basically to promote the 8-man teams events to make both Canada and the US better at it, you know. And the thing is, they really want standardized terrain, so you're not going to have those community tables at, say, you know, a world championship.
No.
And so I think some of the feedback was, hey, the community terrain, often it made for not fun matchups, because you had someone who says, I don't care about terrain. I have this, you know, big Knights Gunline army, and it can be wide open. And then the other guy goes, well, I get stuck on it with my Orcs army and got ran off the board. So, you know, mixed, but it was fun. Like it was meant to be fun, and it was, I think, generally, because it's sort of like you laugh as a team. You're looking at these great WTC setups or the Stutter Snotling setups, which are still very dense. And then you looked at this one kind of funny table with some hills and some weird terrain and maybe some footprints, maybe there weren't. And you're like, that's an issue, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%. I mean, you know what it's all about. You're a guard player. You want those sight lines.
Honestly, even as a shooting player, I really like the WTC layout. Like you said, you could still get shooting lines in there. It does help melee armies, and you can take advantage of it even as a shooting army. You can hide yourself. It's whoever made it did a really good job on all the maps. They all feel very balanced.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, except maybe one that I didn't like, but that's That's my issue.
Sounds like a you problem.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think you made a good point with that. You want to talk a little bit about the current meta as well. What do you think about the current meta right now for getting out of teams right now? Just talking about 40K in general. Yeah. How do you feel like where it's at right now? We have some data slates coming out as well, obviously.
Does it feel healthy?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I actually do think it feels very healthy. I thought when the last data slate came out, which also changed rules, and that was, when they released 10th edition, Stu Black and all the touring they did from GW had said, we want the data slates to not affect rules as much. Yeah. We want to do that maybe once every, there'll be quarterly data slates, and then maybe once every 6 months a rules update. Yeah. I think because of the Eldar. Yeah, because of the Eldar brokenness, they said, "Look, we got to change something here." That was crazy, and I think the changes were quite good. So after that data slate came, I think the meta is fairly balanced. I still think you need to buff up some armies, though, and some armies need to get toned down. The top offenders to me right now are Chaos Space Marines, Eldar, and Votann. Yeah. The reason being is +1 to hit, +1 to wound on Votann is a hell of a drug.
Ignores cover.
Yeah.
Shots.
Yeah, very, very good. And very, very cost effective. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to balance Votann because they just don't have enough units. That's so bumping up their points may not be the answer. And talking to Davey, who's just played so much. I call him the curmudgeon of the Votann players of Canada, so I think that's a great title for him. Yeah. He's sort of like that old man yelling from the porch, "Go on, get off my lawn."
He's a long beard.
Yeah, with a long beard. He's got a long beard. But he's always raised to me a good point of look, we like Votann don't have a lot of models. If you just change points, it's tough. So maybe you might see a grudge token or two at the beginning of the game go away. I still think Votann it's not a brainless army. You got to have decent skill to play it. Yeah. I think anyone, I remember my community out here in Durham, a buddy named Jordan was very good with Tau. Yeah. And so he switched to Votann. He's like, hey, I know this army and I can be very good with it. So if you have that skill set already, that's great. But if you just kind of pick up Votann, you say, let's see how this goes. It's not easy to pilot.
No, they're not an auto win, that's for sure.
You can't drop 30 Hearthguard down and expect to win.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah, you can still get picked up in the wrong situation. CSM just needs some. Yeah, I think many team at World Championships of Warhammer have put the nail in the coffin, as did Liam VSL. That Chosen, a Curse Cultist, and Forge Fiends, and maybe a Blitz, although I would argue that, are all going to get point bumps. Not tons, but enough to go. A Chosen model right now is 22 points. Yeah. So 110 points for 5. For a Chaos Space Marine with 3 wounds that can fall back and advance and shoot and charge. Decent number of attacks, 4 attacks generally with this curse weapon that only does 1 damage at -2 AP. It's really good.
Bunch of exploding 6s if you go Slanesh, and 5s as well.
Yeah, all kinds of great stuff. Bumping up to probably 25 points a model would make sense. Forge Fiends maybe to... Yeah, Forge Fiends probably to 190. I think Chaos Lords might go up to maybe 80 points.
Vindicators, do you think might get an increase?
No, I don't think so. You don't see them as... you don't see them 24-inch range for shooting. They're good, but you think, this is amazing, until you run into someone who knows how to play against them and picks them up. You don't see 2 or 3 of them in every single list. You kind of see them once in a while in lists. But what you do see in every single list now, or in the ones that are going very far, is either Chosen, Chaos Lords, Forge Fiends, and a Curse Cultist. And a Curse Cultist are definitely going up. Them with the Dark Commune, you cannot, if you know how to deal with them, they're manageable. Yep. But it's too easy to just kind of run them up there and say, I own this objective, and by the way, if you come near me, I'm going to kill you. Eldar, I think, still Night Spinners, you look at list, and they're essentially the same. The best meta lists in Eldar are essentially the same, as are CSM, kind of. So when you see, the Incarn taken in every single list, Does he need another 10 points?
Oh,
When you see,
she's about 350 right now, so
yeah, and it's, but that's probably the most powerful mechanic in the game, to be able
it
to
is.
move every phase.
Yeah.
Um, then you have night spinners, which just basically effectively
Oh yeah.
diminish how some armies play, to be able to not advance if you're just hit, and then -2 move. Again, like, hey, I think CSM are very well equipped to know how to beat Eldar, and but I still think they're like night spinners, maybe warp spiders. That's about it. Like, I think
Yeah.
point bumps just need to be adjusted. You still see Eldar, like if you look at the World Championships. Okay, so CSM are like top. There are 3, I think, armies that finished out of the top 5 were CSMs. So they're getting bumped.
They're getting bumped.
But then out of the other 10, I think there's 4 Eldar who are in the top 10 as well, and you're like, they're getting bumped too.
Yeah.
I think the rest of the armies, that's pretty good. I do think some armies need help, like Grey Knights. You don't get enough for your army, and they can be too easily picked up, too much of an elite army. I think Drukari, despite Skari being a whiz with them, they're still, for your typical player, really tough to navigate and to have fun.
Like
and I even think Demon. He is an outlier. You can't put any stock in him playing with him.
Yeah.
And I even think demons are in a tough spot too. I have a couple buddies who play demons, and although you can run a skew list and do quite well with it in teams, for instance, I think overall in tournaments, and other than that, the meta's in a pretty good spot,
Yeah,
So
I feel like, going back to Eldar, I feel like they've taken a lot of nerfs already, and there's not much for them to work with right now at this moment. So it's like, how hard should you hit them? They are still a very good army, but there's not. When you see an Eldar army, it's the same recipe right now. There's no you're going to see Wraithguard, you're going to see the Incarn, you might see a double you see Avatar in the Incarn, you're going to see Warp Spiders, you're going to see Swooping Hawks, but besides that, it's like everybody's just taking those same units, and of course people are running Hornets for the speed and just because they're 100 points. But if you nerf them a little harder, right now, my point for Eldar is they're really good, but I don't think they can win tournaments anymore, based on the bad matchups they get with Votann and in CSM. But I think they, like you said, they can be in that top 10 and they can spam the top 10. I just don't think, I think you're not going to see a lot of Eldar players winning anymore with the current meta, because there's just not a lot. Like, I tried to build other things with my Eldar, and it's like, you have to go with that recipe if you want to stay successful. And there's a lot of holes in it itself, because there's not a lot of models on the table anymore for Eldar.
Yeah.
And there's
very
not much
elite
you can
army.
do. Yeah. So
I totally agree. Yeah. I think now here's the thing, and I thought GW did a pretty good job of this. So CSM at the data slate, they bumped up a couple things. I think they put up Forge Fiends and a Blitz at the first data slate, but then they dropped Warp Talons, Raptors, I believe, and Chosen. People weren't using them, and you go, and then people started to use them. And you see a guy like Liam Vassell win London Grand Tournament with them, and all of a sudden they're just all the bloody rage because people see how effective they are. Yeah. I could see them doing, and I think GW does like doing that, and I think it's a good recipe that if you nerf some units, give point breaks on others, so that, like, Eldar is a deep codex. There are a ton of models in there. Same with CSM. There's a ton of models in there. So maybe if there are some point breaks on other models, you'll see people re-engineering their list and saying, let's try this. And it keeps the meta fun, right? It keeps it from getting stale.
I think that would work well, because I saw with other stuff, Tau in 9th edition, every time they nerfed the good stuff and didn't buff up anything else, people would just double down on the good stuff. And it's happening to Eldar now too.
Exactly.
People just double down on the good stuff and take out the extra fluff
it
that
really
made it different.
I had a very tough time piloting this rendition of my list with Eldar at the last GT, and it was like, I just feel like they lost that ability to stay survivable. Like, they're not as survivable as they were before, and it's because I have to spam spiders now, and spiders have a 3-up save and 5-up invuln, and before I could take
wound.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
G3.
you start seeing all the holes in like, you see all the good things, and you're like, all the holes. I also went up against a 13 what was his?
War Dog list.
13 war dogs, and they all had indirect fire. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way my swooping hawks are staying in cover versus decent
bad matchup.
Shots. So I'm like, I could do whatever I can, but whatever.
Also, are still winning a lot of tournaments. I think they still have the most tournament wins.
They do?
I think.
GTs?
By a mile,
GTs,
by a country mile.
Really?
But they are still winning GTs, just not as much as before.
Eldari have now won more tournaments than any other faction, including NIDS in 9th when NIDS were just insanely OP. Yeah. They still have more GT wins than a lot of other factions have just tournament wins. Yeah. It's crazy. Like they're still now. Will it tail off? Yeah, maybe. But there's a lot of specialist Eldari players who are gonna, I'm sure Claudio, you're gonna look and try to re-engineer it after the next status you can run with, right?
I mean, I want to get Hornets and all that. If I run a pure meta, but I'm just not like I know it's going to change, so it's like I'm not going to invest into that.
It'll change.
So yeah, they are very good, of course. Yeah, it's just
buy one of everything, man. That's the answer. Like maybe two of everything. That's fine.
Exactly. It was funny because we were playing last week, and it's like I haven't played new Voton yet since they got their buffs, and Anthony's like, I'm going to run Voton because I'm going to play on tabletop, and I'm just going to throw them into you and see what happens against CSM. And I'm like, let's do it. And at the end of it, Davey was watching, and Dave's like, at the end of the whole stream, I'm like, that Voton are stupid. I'm like, this is ridiculous. You just shot me with like 6,000 shots.
Yeah, 5 minutes to roll each unit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I have 30 shots, then I have 50 shots, and then all the wounding with it.
And Dave is just in the chat, and he's like, wait a second. You won 100 to like 76, but somehow Voton are broken. I'm like, I'm not trying to complain.
CSM need a touch.
Yeah. So it's like
CSM need a bit of a touch.
They do, yeah.
CSM are, really I think, are top of the meta right now.
Yeah, for sure.
They are. There's no question about it. CSM, I think, like there isn't an Eldar list that I would hesitate in taking on and would back myself against. And it's just really other CSM players. My only other concern are either armies that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
Which aren't a ton, but I'm like, like Sisters. I know they can do some things. Yeah. And Tau, to me, the Tau list that can at least like Votan, I know, right? I played tons into it. Sure. Tau, I don't know as well, and I think they
can be funny.
They can be all those cyclic ions, and as long as they don't kill themselves. So
it's like doubling back, 6-1s.
Doubling back. I didn't mean Eldar can't win tournaments. I meant that there are two bad matchups that are like CSM and armies that are going to be in that final table that you're going to see, and it's like it's very hard for them to win tournaments in that situation. But if you get a good matchup with Eldar, of course there's going to be tournament winners all over the place with that.
Oh sure.
It's a lucky dice roll against the Yinkarn. Good luck.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to talk about with you were going to talk about? Yeah. A few questions with that. And
I do think it's healthy.
Better you ask it.
Not just because through victories, because of course the OP armies are going to win.
Yeah.
Just list variety. Most armies actually have a variety of lists they can reasonably take, other than Eldar with the one list.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the meta's healthy.
Yeah.
Because it's just nice seeing here's like 4 different kinds of way to play Tau. I don't know, most armies. CSM I've seen in different ways. Space Marines have a ton
absolutely.
Of ways.
I think that's a great point. Right now, there is list diversity. I do think there are a couple of armies, Chaos Knights. Right now, the only meta choice is the 13 War Dog spam.
Yeah.
The big Knights for both Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, they need to come down in points because it's just not cost effective to use the big Knights because they got nerfed when towering was a thing and now it's not a thing. And it is cool to see those on the board, man. Like it's awesome. As a CSM player, I love 13 War Dogs. I'll take those on all day. I just see bring down points. I'm like, I'm probably going to table you around turns 4 or 5. But for a lot of armies, like, 13 War Dogs, geez. But you look at, like, say, Death Guard. I've seen either on War Games Live or a couple, or Tabletop Live, a couple other like live event streaming services that have shown Death Guard finals, totally different lists, like completely different lists, winning champion. And that, to me, that's cool. Like our captain from the other guy's team, Jaden ran a 6 vehicle Rhino Rush, 60 Plague Marine list with Mortarion, and generally crushed his opponents. I think he lost 1 game.
Nice.
So, and that's a completely different way to run it. CSM, you can see there are key units, but there are some guys like, I'm not using Curse Cultists, are stupid. And then other guys who lean way heavily into it. Some guys like the gun line, some guys don't. Sisters, you get so much for your points now. There's lots of ways to play them. Space Marines, there's all these different ways to play them. I think the meta is in a really healthy state, and there now just needs to be some points adjustment, which we're supposed to see in December. And rock on, like, good for 40K, man. It's come a long way since 10th edition came out.
For sure, it changed when Eldar could just blow things up. And yeah, I agree with you totally. Like, I can build an Eldar list that takes on 13 War Dogs. I'm not going to beat any other army, but I can build a counter list to that. But like you said, exactly, it's just going to be a couple of tweaks here and there that's going to balance everything. We'll see how it is in December. I also want to ask you, you did win the Fall Open, which is last month, but how much has your list changed from then to now? Are you still sticking with CSM? Are you making any changes? I don't want to give away any of your tricks or.
I've no trade secrets.
Okay.
So,
No trade secrets?
I know the way I like to play. The Fall Open list, I knew putting together that I kind of I looked at the train pack and I thought, look at, like, you got to be able to win with the terrain, and it was WTC style terrain, 6 rounds, very dense. And so, for instance, at the Fall Open, there wasn't a single Tau player or a single Orcs player,
Really?
which is crazy out of like 60 players. And I think the reason being is that, look, if like Orcs, generally the best list uses a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
Well, those trucks are going to get log jammed in that kind of dense terrain setting. And then Tau, vehicles, they can't go through buildings.
Right.
So again, no Tau. Now there was a ton of CSM. There was a ton of Space Marines, as Toronto meta is. Yeah. Only a few Votan, including Davies, but lots of other, great lists. Lots of Eldar, obviously. But the list was largely the same. I took to BPO, which was 2 squads of Cursed Cultists with the max blobs. 3 squads of Chosen, which include 2 5-mans and 1 10-man. Yep. I ran 3 Chaos Lords for the Toronto Fall Open list. And for the BPO list, I was experimenting with the Dark Apostle to run with a 10-man squad for a +1 to hit melee, or +1 to wound in melee, which is very, very good. And then 2 Chaos Lords to kind of run around and do their thing with the 5-man squads. 2 Forge Fiends, though, is a must to me. Nurgle and Undivided, very typical. Only had 1 Rhino because in my BPO list, because the Dark Apostle connecting to the 10-man Chosen squad. Yeah, he has 2 little acolytes with him, and that makes it 13. So, but yeah, it saved me some points. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing in teams is if you cannot take an ally where your team member is playing that faction. So we had a Demons player, a great player named Thomas, did really well in the tournament, but it meant I couldn't take any demon allies. And I love taking Nurglings or the Changeling or Blue Scribes or things like that to bolster as action monkeys or objective takers. So in the BPO list, without being able to take the demon allies, I took a squad of bikes, which were excellent. They did really well. The ability to be picked up if they're within 6 inches of the board edge at the end of the player's turn and come back down, including in turns 4 and 5, are great for deploy and things like that. Sure. And then a squad of Warp Spiders, Warp Talons, which are great for just also action monkeys, kill something, deep strike. The Fall Open list had 2 squads of Nurglings and Changeling, and they all did great. Those little demon allies did great, but the lists are largely the same.
You need to get behind enemy lines or do teleport homers. You just get your little Nurglings back there.
The Changeling just boring as hell.
Out of 6 games for the Toronto Fall Open, 5 of them I went fixed, and only in the final I went tactical because I was playing a CSM mirror match. Against Vince Peretti, who is a really good player, but he was playing essentially the Ultra Killy CSM list with Abaddon, 10 Terminators, the 4-man Brick of a Blitz, all the stuff that I didn't have, but instead I had these Cursed Cultist blobs. Every other time I just went. What's that?
He had a Demon Prince in there too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
He did add a Demon Prince. Yeah, very killy Demon Prince. And I think he had a Flux Master just for a bit of action monkey kind of thing. But a very killy list. But I was just a more resilient CSM list. So that was a really super close game, great game. But this list for BPO is again essentially the same. Being able to, for me, I generally go fixed. I usually go deploy teleport homers, and then either bring it down or assassination, depending on what the other team gives up. If I'm going against Eldar, it's usually deploy and assassinate. If I'm going against Chaos Knights, I'm gonna go bring it down and deploy.
Absolutely.
And it's worked pretty good.
I think that's a pretty good strategy, and you have your Nurglings there to do that in at least 3 or 4 turns, and then Changeling if you need to do it as well. Yeah, I mean that's a good strat, and I love that list. I saw it. We watched the finals for that, so it was just like we were cheering you on, and we were really happy that you won that. But
I was surprised. It's when you go through a tournament like that, and Davey was the one who nearly knocked me out because he absolutely could have beat me in the one time we played. He's like, "You might win this." I'm like, "No, I'm not winning." And then next thing you know, you're playing the final, going, "Oh shit, okay, here I am." Yeah, like neat. So
it's awesome. Did you want to ask anything else before we get going and let Brian get back to his life?
You actually just answered the next one I wanted to ask about, how did you handle the mirror match? And you switched up to tactical.
Yes, the mirror match in the final was I went tactical. I had a mirror match in the BPO army against two other guy, another guy with Devil Curse Cultist, guy named Mark Finney. Good player, like really good player, really knew his stuff. But I'll tell you, and I think Anthony, you're playing some Tau against Claudio CSM tomorrow night.
Tonight.
Or tonight? Okay, cool. Well, I'll be.
3 hours.
Okay, well, look, I think a great little tactic to use when you're playing against Curse Cultists. One thing I did was if you have a character, one little killy character, and you don't always have to start your characters linked with a squad. So, for instance, CSM, often you have Chaos Lords with a squad of Chosen, right? But at the beginning of the game, you can say, this character is going to start in his own, right? You have that option every game, especially when you're playing in a tournament. You don't have to start them together. You just say, man. So I started a Chaos Lord on his own, and against an Accursed Cultist squad, my opponent, I had him run up and charge the Accursed Cultist squad. And the guy's like, hey, he's on a suicide mission. What's going on? So I did an epic challenge, which, 1 CP, that Chaos Lord can then target the one character in that group. Well, the one character in the group is the Cult Demagogue, which is only T4, 4 wounds, 5 up embalm, 6 up feel no pain. Chaos Lord's going to pick him up every time.
Yeah.
The thing is, for 75 points of throwing away that Chaos Lord, it completely defanged that Accursed Cultist group because now they don't have a 5 up embalm. It was done before they did their once a game advance in charge where they have a +1 to hit, +1 to wound. And then you bring out your army, you bring out a Forge Fiend, or you can even charge them with a squad of Chosen and maybe some Warp Talons or something, and pick them up. That's kind of what happened in that game. So a great little tech piece to defang the Accursed Cultist blob. Throw in a character, epic challenge, take out that Cult Demagogue, and they are much easier to deal with.
Really well. Unfortunately,
when they don't have a 5 up embalm, they're a lot easier to deal with.
Just a 6 up feel no pain. They're a lot easier to chunk out.
Sadly, I usually play armies that don't have good melee to want to epic challenge.
Come into combat with your little.
That's the issue, though.
Yeah. 8 on 5s. 4s actually is my character.
It's gonna be fun to see the Tau back on the table because we haven't played them in about a year, but
it's an odd-ish list.
It'll be fun. He's got a Storm Surge in there. It should be fun.
I don't actually.
You took it out?
I thought I would need it to.
No, you have to bring it in. That's in the thumbnail.
I know, that's why I was like, oh no, it's not in there, because I thought I would need it to fill out points, and then I'm like, wait, I actually have way too many points. I can't even fit everything I wanted to put in.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what.
Well, cheating's an option. If you want to bring 2,500 points to a 2,000 point CSM army, maybe it'll be even.
I'll put it up on a wall in the back and just be like, he'll stand there.
I'll let you bring it if I can bring a Wraith Knight.
With CSM?
Yeah, don't do it, Anthony. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't know, can the Storm Surge one-shot it? No.
Oh, man.
But you don't get Jinx or whatever it's called.
Jinx. Wrong edition. But thanks for joining us, Brian. We don't want to keep you too long.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Look, before I go, if you guys, there's a local store, a gaming store that I play out of called Critical Hit. They, have a bit of GW product, but a really good place to play a tournament. If you or Justin or Anthony or any listeners are free this weekend, they're trying to change their RTTs and events to kind of catch up with the current 10th meta, and they've let me help out with some of their player pack design. So this is the first weekend that I've been able to help them sort of rechange their tournament format or change up their tournament format. It's a little 3-man RTT. It's at critical hit. It's on BCP. It's only $20. If you or any of you three are available, it would be great to see you there. I can't play, but I'll be there in the morning to check on the tournament. It's fixed terrain. It's going to be using the WTC style or Leviathan GT player pack with the footprints and what have you. So, any listeners who are free this Saturday and want to check out a cozy little small RTT in Curtis at Critical Hit, come check it out.
That's awesome. And I think Justin has a link to that. We'll throw it down in the description for anybody that wants to check it out.
He told me about it. I'm interested.
Yeah.
Seems like it'd be fun.
Cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you can register all the way till Friday at 5 p.m.
Awesome.
So, but get your list in, and it's just fun. We hope to see get a few folks out there. It'd be great to get one of you three big personalities out there.
Absolutely. We'll check it. We'll look into that for sure. I'm sure one of us can get out there 100% for this weekend. You said, right? It's Saturday?
Yeah, this Saturday. Yeah.
Awesome.
And for the people watching, check out the other guys, their podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's enjoyable when you're building models.
The other guy's 40K. You got Ryan right here, and you got Dave who plays Voton, and he also plays Sisters, right?
And Grey Knights.
And Grey Knights.
The guy's working on his Grey Knights list. He's the guy's an absolute painting machine. So
he was supposed to be on tomorrow, but he's not feeling well. He was supposed to come on for a live stream battle report. He's not feeling well, so we're going to schedule him in for another game. But check these guys out. They are absolute lads, and they're in the 40K scene in Toronto, and you see them anywhere you come here, and they're a bunch of, you guys are great guys. Honestly, the first time we met you, you're just awesome games against you. We always have great games when we play. They're, we play a high level, but it's just respectable games, and a lot of fun playing against you guys. So anytime you guys are around, we'll always try to support you guys, and thanks for coming out. Honestly, it's been a great talk today.
And passionate at it.
Yes.
So.
They love what
Claudio,
they do,
Anthony.
they're great at it.
Hey guys, Claudio, Anthony, the feeling's mutual. Love supporting you guys. I think you're doing a lot for the 40K community. It's not like you guys are breaking bank doing this. You're basically running a really great pod and stream, with money in your own pocket. So if anyone can subscribe and listen to Northern Knights Gaming, it helps the 40K community. And I know you guys try to get out to lots of events and promote it. And look, it's just promoting a game we love. So feelings likewise. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
See you guys. Take care.
Take care. We're Northern Knights Gaming. This is Brian and the other guys, 40K. We'll see you next time. We'll see you tonight on the live stream. Me and Anthony are playing. He's playing Tau. I'm playing CSM.
I'm back with Tau.
Should be fun. We'll see. No Storm Surge, apparently.
Yeah, but
Take
6
care.
broadsides.
Good luck.
Take care.